going to talk about some of my teachers. I've been talking about, my memoirs and writing them in scene sequel form, or at least portions of them. And this may be more interesting than you think. Not at first. You got to get to the punchline. That is Coach Ray Ellis, 7th, 8th, and ninth grade coach. First row, Coach Ellis. Name was Ray Ellis. He was approaching retirement. Older man. Tough guy. Not a parent necessarily, but he was a tough guy. And when I was in the 7th grade, in just gym class, he was under a misapprehension, a misunderstanding. And he yelled at me. And I yelled back. And I explained why I was yelling at him. And he was wrong. He was in the wrong. Everybody in the gym knew he was in the wrong. And he realized he was in the wrong. Now, he did not publicly apologize then, but we talked later. And he said, actually, by standing up to him, because I was also standing up for some other guys that he was misunderstanding, I had showed leadership. And he put me on what was called the Boys Leaders Club. And it only had any official duties in gym, the gym class, in the gym at any time. And that is the Boys Leaders Club, 7th, 8th, and ninth grade. That was me. Robert Beatty. Many of these guys we were friends for years. Roberts was an usher at my wedding. Cooper was away in the Air Force. McAnally had been one of my neighbors. And, well, these were some good guys. Gary Farthing happened to blink. We gave him a hard time about it. Leo Clifton Bryant Jr. Anyway, this is the late 60s. And I developed a constant relationship with Ray Ellis. He seemed to take an interest in me. And when I went out for track, he seemed to put particular interest in me, especially on one thing. Coach Ellis was a stickler for success on track relay races on the handoffs. And so I don't have a picture of me in junior high here, but in high school, I was on varsity, and see, I'm carrying a baton. Robert Beatty, 74, this was in the school paper, in a relay race. And running in a sprint relay, and Wichita West, WW. Now, the relay race, if you don't know, I don't want to waste time on specifics talking about it, how to do a handoff, but there was a whole thing about it. And in fact, I spent so much time working on my own skills and the relay skills team, working with the other guys on the team. Coach Ellis wanted me to become a track coach. And one thing we never had, at least the guys that worked with me, were problems on the relay handoff. And we won some races, close races, that we should have probably lost because we had better handoffs than the other guys. In the Olympics, the American team, they must just have bad coaches, or else the guys are fast sprinters but are incompetent at track, because the relay is just as important as fast. I mean, we keep losing. They keep dropping or running out of the lane and being disqualified. That never happened under Coach Ellis. So he put me on the Boys Leaders Club and basically made me in charge of, the guys working on on the handoffs on the relays. And we had good teams. I enjoyed it and I learned a lot because both Coach Ellis and my dad said that the school was for learning skills for life. And I thought of that throughout my career, human resources management and law. Got to do handoffs, transitions. Got to work on those transitions. Also in writing. There I am in the joint eighth and ninth grade track team. Robert Beatty. So track, and in my senior year at West High, let's see, the coaches appointed the track team captains. And in my senior year at West High, I don't know if it was this race. You were a different track team captain each meet, and in one of the meets, my high school coach appointed me team captain. So I don't have a picture and I can't find my yearbook. I'm going to talk about my English teacher. And my senior year, no, I'm saying this wrong, my ninth grade year, my freshman year, this was published in my senior year, but I started writing Mr. Cowdery, Bruce Cowdery. He had said there is a great flaw in our education system, especially in English. That's when this published. March 1974, 51 years ago this month. I was already a newspaper columnist, wrote in Teen Talk. I also wrote for a national youth magazine, a column. And it's because Mr. Cowdery encouraged me to apply. He said, all the way K through 12 and really in college, you're writing for one person, your instructor, your teacher. But he said that's really a flaw. Out in the real world, sure, you're going to write for your boss, but that's not the best way to learn writing. So it's in the first month of my ninth grade year. Mr. Cowdery has the rest of the class do some silent reading, and he gives me a test. He said, here, take this test. So I finished in about a half hour, handed it to him. I start reading, and Mr. Cowdery, after a few minutes, says, class dismissed. Now, this is another thing about how different times were back then in the late 60s, early 70s. Um, the doors weren't locked. You could just walk right into school, walk out, hang out in the hallway. Um, so he said, class dismissed, and there's still, 20 minutes in class. So he wants to talk to me. He says, class dismissed, except for Robert. And he said the test he gave me was the final for the ninth grade English department. And I didn't miss any questions. He said, it's just pointless for me to have you do the same stuff everybody else is doing. Now, this is something else. Just like Coach Ellis had taken kind of a special interest in me, so had Mr. Cowdery. And they said, Mr. Cowdery said, I'm giving you a different course curriculum. And he wanted me, he said, anybody ever told you to become a writer? And I told him the story. Well, when my aunt owns a bookstore in Oklahoma City, and she introduces me to writers that come in. As this is my nephew Robbie, he's going to become a writer. So these are some great people. These were my ninth grade classmates, and I put on Shakespeare. So anyway, he gives me different assignments, and one of the assignments that Mr. Cowdery gave me, he said, I want you to write about two people having lunch at an outdoor cafe. I want you to write about their meal. So I do. And he works with me on it. Tells me to go to the dictionary and go to the thesaurus. He said, you should use the dictionary and thesaurus for the rest of your life in writing. And so I talk about the meal was succulent and the citrus made their mouth water and, so forth. So he said, when I was finally finished with the paper, he was satisfied. He said, excellent paper, Robert. But later, when you want to be a commercial writer, you're not going to be able to sell that anywhere. It's about two people eating lunch. Now, you take the same paper with your evocative language, but you have to put it in the context of a story. Something like this. This has been a couple that's been dating. They're adults. And the guy wants to break up with the woman. He's fallen in love with somebody else. So he's hoping, because they're at this public place, she won't make a scene. The woman is pregnant, and he's the father, and she really thinks he's going to propose to her when he finds out she's pregnant. So they have completely different ideas. She thinks they're going to spend the rest of their lives together, and he thinks he's never going to see her again. And there's more you could put into the story to add to the drama, but it's not just the language. Language is important. Nouns and verbs are important, but a story is more. So I learned from him. And every so often I'll hear something that's about, oh, you got that from blah, blah source. And I got that from Mr. Bruce Cowdery, my ninth grade English teacher. So in the spring of my ninth grade year, it's, track season. And we are a contender for the city championship, our track team. And Mr. Cowdery decides to put on Shakespeare. under the direction of Bruce Cowdery. And he asks me, because he had us read Shakespeare, me and everybody else. And he said, Robert, do you know the Mercutio role, Shakespeare's best friend? And tell me his speech. And I said, what, you mean his Queen Mab speech or his, church door speech? I think I called it barn door, and he corrected me. And he said church door. And so, it's not as deep as a well, nor wide as a barn door, but will suffice. I acted out a little bit. And he says, okay, you're Mercutio in the school play. Whoa, wait a minute. What's the schedule on this? I don't know if I can do it. And I couldn't do it. It directly conflicted with track practice, play practice after school. So I just said, well, I can't do it. Yes, you can. Just don't go to track practice. And we get into an argument about it. So anyway, I go talk to Coach Ellis. He's the track coach. And it's not for the whole track season. I would need to miss 2 weeks of practice, track practice. And I thought he would, say okay. But he said no. And I go back and forth. It's not just one time. I don't just accept no. And, well, here's the guys, the main players, and I'm not in that picture. I ultimately decided to do track. And Mr. Cowdery was deeply disappointed. And Coach Ellis didn't seem all that happy about my decision, but, I ran on the 9th grade track team. My final run in junior high or freshman year of college or high school track, I ran a quarter mile in 56.9 seconds. And Coach Ellis came up and with his stopwatch and said, why did you do that all year? Because I was closer to 60 seconds most of the year. "30 years later, I hear a story that I did not know. Wasn't one of these people, but one of my classmates said they had heard a yelling argument about me between Coach Ray Ellis and English teacher Bruce Cowdery. Cowdery said apparently the same thing to Coach Ellis that he said to me. If I'm going to be a writer, I should be in at least one play. And this, he made it. I might not, I could obviously try later, but here I was already cast. I should do this. It would be good for my education. And Coach Ellis said I was going to appoint him captain when we make it to the city meet. Anyway, I run track. We don't do that well. I improve personally, but we don't win the city meet. We do the next year, West High. My sophomore year, we win the sophomore city league track championship. And but Allison Junior High, well, the height of that year was these guys putting on the play, and I was in the audience instead of being up on stage. And there's one more part of the story. Remember the time, late 60s, early 70s. I am a dumbass about some things, and I didn't know Bruce Cowdery was a gay man, closeted, hidden gay man. And Ray Ellis knew that, and there was some kind of, I don't know if it's what you'd call it, but I'm told they didn't get along, and that's why. Now, here's the thing, there was never a hint of that in front of me by either of them. Um, I truly think they each wanted what they thought was best for me. Coach Ellis really thought I was going to become a track coach and I should run on the track team. And Bruce Cowdery thought I was going to become a writer, including a playwright. And I did. I won third prize in an international playwright. Um, I've written plays. None of them did well at all. And but I'll stop talking about plays. They'll be a separate. But so I salute these my classmates. Did a great job. I think most of these have died now, and bring back lots of memories. So I was not in the play. I was on the track team. I started regretting not being in this play. And if I had it to do over, I would be in the play. I don't have it to do over. So that's just a memory and a life lesson. This one for me is one of regret.